Hey guys, Pro1701 here, and today I'm going to be ranking Doctor Who stories that I saw for the first time in 2021. So Doctor Who stories I had never seen before this year. Now I will not be including any of Flux, because at the time of recording, all of Flux hasn't aired yet, so naturally I haven't seen all of Flux, and Flux does strike me as something that you need to see the whole thing before you judge it. It would be like judging a classic Doctor Who story when you've only seen, 3/4 of it. So I will wait and talk about Flux after I've seen it all. I will have Revolution of the Daleks on here, because I do believe that came out this New Year's, if I remember correctly. So it will be on the list. At the bottom, we have The Gunfighters, which I believe was this year. I'm having to remember if it was last year or this year when I watched that for the first time. But I think it was this year. Most of y'all know I don't like The Gunfighters. It's just awful. And it's not just that song that plays like, 99% of the episode or the story. Excuse me. My sinuses are acting up. It's not just that. The Southern cowboy American accents are terrible. I mean, think about what happens when Americans try to do British accents. You guys know. Trying to watch them do American accents is like trying to watch Sean Connery be a Spaniard. I'm a Spaniard. Yeah, okay. You Highlander guys know what I'm talking about. I like some things in it. I like Doc Holliday in it a lot. The guy playing Doc Holliday, I feel like, does a really good job. I find him interesting. I like Dodo in this a bit. Like, I don't find her annoying in this one. She actually seems like she has stuff to do. Don't really like Steven in it, but he didn't really have much to do. At least that I can remember off the top of my head. Hartnell's alright in it, but not really great. I think he's weaker than usual. He's just okay in it. Next on the list is Delta and the Bannermen. I don't really get into this one either. I discussed that in length when I was talking about classic Who stories that are some of my least favorites. I don't really care for it. I didn't like the busload of people dying. That shocked me when that happened. I was like, is he gonna manage to save them somehow? No, they're gone. They're dead. They all died. I'm like, where are these people who always talk about how silly and campy and slapsticky season 24, where are they coming from? I don't get it. It's like they watched episode 1 of Tom and the Ronnie and was like, season 24 is the silly season. I'm like, have you watched season 24? Go watch Paradise Towers, Delta and the Bannermen, and Dragonfire. And even some of the aspects and ideas behind Tom and the Ronnie, that's some pretty dark stuff going on. Season 24 is a dark season of Doctor Who. If you can get past the visual aesthetic of it, there is some dark stuff going on that season. Very, very dark. Number 10 on the list is The Claws of Axos. As I've said before, I love Delgado in this. Of course, the main cast is fine. They're always good. I love Delgado, though. He's really good here, especially when he's having to work on the fly in this one, unlike his 2 previous stories where he can be a little more methodical. I like the FBI agent that's tracking him down. I think the actor does a good job there. I like the Axons when they're in their Krynoid costume, but I don't really like the spaceship design. I don't really like the Axons when they're in their obviously made in the 70s design, and I just don't really like the story, to be honest. It doesn't grip me. I don't really care for it. The one that's going to get me in trouble. The Daemons. I just think this is the most overrated Jon Pertwee story. I don't hate it. We're past the ones that I think are bad. This one is fine. But it's fine. It's okay. I've only watched it once and I haven't had an urge to go back and watch it, which I keep meaning to because I want to watch the omnibus version of it, see if I enjoy it more. But every time I get ready to do it, I'm just like, I can't do it yet. The subject matter doesn't really do much for me. That one reporter drives me crazy, but yes, I have caught on to the fact that that's the point. And then the ending's a little weak for me. The whole we beat the Daemon with love. It's no different than Closing Time when Craig beats the Cybermen with love. We beat him with love, Alf. It's the same thing. Seriously, you can't like the Daemons and hate Closing Time when they have the exact same resolution. You cannot do it. If you love the Daemons, then you need to go get yourself some paper towels and go watch Closing Time. Number 8 is the Dominators. And yes, I am ranking the Dominators ahead of the Daemons. And a lot of you are like, ooh. But it all boils down to Troughton. The Daemons, I do think, is a better story. Because the Dominators is not a very good story. It's a bit boring. It's not great. But Troughton is great in it. And plus, it's one of the few surviving complete Troughton stories. So I actually get to watch Troughton. And Troughton is so good in it. When he's convincing the Daemons that he's so dumb, he's not a threat and useless, that they just let him go. I love that. And then they see him later and he's like, we told you to stay away from the quarks. Well, I do, but it's an island and they're everywhere. What am I supposed to do? Every time I see one, I run away. I absolutely love how Troughton doesn't miss a beat and just immediately lies through his teeth. And he does it in this very, like, slouched shoulder. I'm not a threat. See, I'm submissive, almost submissive posture. You know, kind of Charlie Chaplin-like. It's absolutely hilarious. I love Troughton so much. That's the reason why this one's higher than some of the others. Next on the list is Galaxy 4. And I like the animation in color. The colors pop and really help this. The story, much like the Dominators, the story is not that interesting. It's a very B story. And it's a very tropey story by today's standards. Maybe when it happened, I think when it came out in the 60s, it was probably a really good lesson, as the show was very much a kid's show then, of not, a very good lesson of not judging a book by its cover, not judging just by looks. That's a very important lesson that even some people would need to learn today, apparently. But it is a little tropey by today's standards. And while I enjoy the surviving episode 3, it doesn't really mesh well with the animations because of some of the drastic changes made. And then the color version just pops so well. It's very seldom I would watch an animated episode over a surviving episode, but I do think when watching Galaxy 4, I will prefer the color version just because the colors are so vibrant. It really gives the story a brand new life, which I enjoy. Next on the list is The Edge of Destruction. And I'm going to be honest, the story I don't really care for. It's the ending. The ending is the only reason it ranks so high, because as a two-parter, it's alright, because it doesn't overstay its welcome, but I wasn't really enjoying it much. I was just kind of getting through it so I could watch it and review it, but I love the ending. I love that this is the first time we really see the Doctor, kind of his softer side. We really see his softer side, like when he's talking to Susan at the end is, I do think your grandfather may be going a bit around the bend. And then how he's nice to a degree with Ian, just to a degree, because they're both very much alpha males. But, the Doctor does as much as he can do to say he's sorry to Ian. But then he does go and apologize to Barbara and talks to her and admits that she saved their lives and that she was right. And even walks arm in arm with her. It's the first time to me that he doesn't think of them just as stowaways he had to basically abduct, and as people he might actually want to get to know and spend time with as companions. And I really, really love that. I think that's where you really start to see him form bonds with him, and I think that's very touching, and that's why it ranks so high. Plus, I love the fact that Barbara is written so well in the story. They really do a lot with Barbara, and I love she's the one that figures everything out. I think that's pretty progressive for 1964. So. Next on the list is Revolution of the Daleks. I like Revolution of the Daleks. I think it's a good story. Revolution of the Daleks. Revolution of the Daleks. Resolution was alright, but I really like Revolution of the Daleks. I don't like the fact that Whittaker couldn't get out of jail. I think it's just another example of how her doctor it's just an utter failure as a doctor, because I think any other doctor would have gotten out of there. You know, you put McCoy in that situation, he would have been gone. So the fact Jack has to show up and save her is a bit frustrating, and it's another one of those moments where her doctor is just failing as a doctor. I love having Captain Jack back. I love John Bannermen, so it's great to have Jack back. I love the fact he breaks her out fairly easily. Also, her doctor is, you know, the fact she can't mend fences. I mean, it's not the doctor showing up late I think's off. That's actually a very doctory thing to do for the doctor to be 10 months late. That's actually Whitaker being the doctor not arriving when they're supposed to. That's pretty standard doctor fare. But the fact she doesn't seem able to mend fences when perhaps some of the others might could. Now, they might not have either, so I might not be being fair there. But I feel like they would have tried differently or harder. I like the Daleks in this one. I like the story with the Daleks taking over the suits. I think the kind of Trump guy is written a lot better. He just doesn't seem like a caricature of Trump, and that BBC just trying to make fun of Trump in this one. He does actually seem a little more fleshed out and more like his own person, like an actual person in this one, which I like. You know, you can actually see some of his motivations. It's just he's not like a cardboard cutout here. So I think he's written a lot better. I love the real Daleks showing up to have to blast the kind of human hybrid Daleks. And the fact, you know, one, it gives me nice remembrance of the Daleks vibes. That's always really nice. But two, I absolutely love the fact that the real Daleks slaughter them so easily. I mean, it's you know, it's not even a contest, because naturally the Daleks would be able to destroy any man-made Daleks with man-made Dalek suits. That just goes without saying. So I love the fact that the actual Daleks just dominate them. That's the way I figured that should go. I think it's neat how the Doctor tricks them in the end of luring them into the TARDIS and destroying it. Now, on one hand, I have a hard time believing the Doctor would kill a TARDIS. I mean, it's a TARDIS. There's not many TARDISes left at this point, and she just kills a TARDIS, a living being, a TARDIS, and she just either murders it or lets it die, however you want to look at it. That doesn't strike me as very Doctor-like. I have a hard time believing the Doctor would do that. On the other hand, it looks great. Seeing the Daleks fly into the TARDIS, finding out that she conned them, which is really neat. I love how she pulled the little switcheroo with the TARDISes. And then the effect of the TARDIS imploding looks nice enough that I'm really willing to forgive it. I just thought it was a really good episode, and I enjoyed it. I have the War Machines. I like the War Machines. It's just a really good story. For the most part, I think the actual War Machines themselves look a little silly. I think by 60 standards, they look decent, but today they just look kind of silly. It's hard to imagine them as a threat. But I love the story of the Wotan, or whatever it is, the Wotan, the computer, taking over people. That's a neat effect when it does it, and seeing it just, you know, subvert their mind and their thinking and making people obey them. That's pretty neat. You know, Star Trek, the original Star Trek dealt with stuff like that too, really well. And then Hartnell's great in this. I really love Hartnell in this. He has some great lines, some great camera shots. I just love him in this. Dodo's exit's very badly handled. That's probably the worst problem with the story, is her exit's really, really terrible. But Ben and Polly's introduction, and this is the only complete story with them, with actual surviving episodes, is really good, because I like Ben and Polly, so it's nice to see them in this as well. Number 4 is Paradise Towers. I love Paradise Towers. I've talked before about how much I love Paradise Towers. That really is one of the, and we're kind of at that point now. These top 4 really, really are just amazing standouts for me this year. To have gotten 4 stories that just blow me away the way these top 4 do is amazing. Just to be able to add them and be able to rewatch them whenever I want. Because I love Paradise Towers. I love how dark it is. You know, if you can get past the kind of visual tones that season 24 has, that kind of bright, campy look that it has, and actually look at the stories, it's very dark. I love everything going on with the 2 cannibalistic old ladies, the freaking machine that's grabbing people and dragging people, you know, through the garbage disposals, you know, the architect down in the basement, hungry, you know, that's some creepy stuff going on in it. And McCoy actually does a very good performance here. He's very toned down, very subdued. He actually went from Time and the Ronnie 7th Doctor to what we would see in season 25 and season 6, especially Doctor, in this story. Now, he camps it up a little bit more in like Dragonfire and a couple places, but in his second story here in Paradise Towers, he is actually very reined in, very toned back. He's already starting to figure out what he wants to do with the character, and it's really, really good. Number 3 is the Mind Robber. God, I love the Mind Robber. I'd always heard about how good the Mind Robber is, and I think I had actually tried to watch the first episode before, and I didn't know what was going on, so I couldn't connect with it. But after hearing about its reputation, I'm glad I picked it and the Dominators up when I did a couple months back, because I didn't want to wait until we started getting box sets. I wanted to go ahead and see these stories, especially since there's just not that many surviving Troughton, completely surviving Troughton stories. These are the only 2 I hadn't seen of his completely surviving stories, so I wanted to watch those, and I love this story. I just went on and on and on about how great it was in my review of it. Just the fact that Doctor Who is able to create this fantasy world that feels very much removed from our reality, that's its own thing, that you can firmly believe they are just out of time altogether, and they did it on a BBC budget. Black and white really lends itself to this serial really well. With that, it takes this bare minimalist approach that is just perfect here. It works so well, and all the tricks they use to make this work. I love this story. I love when Doctor Who does things like this. It's one of the reasons why I really want Celestial Toymaker animated, because I've read the Target novel and loved it. It's one of the reasons I love Ghostlight as much as I do. I want to see more stories done like this. This is Doctor Who when it's doing something different. I'd love to see the modern series tackle stuff like this with the technology we have now. The possibilities are endless. Number 2 on the list is Evil of the Daleks. I love Evil of the Daleks. It's not quite as good as Power, but I absolutely love the story. I think the animation is one of the best animations we've got. It's probably my 3rd favorite after Moonbase and Macra, but it's definitely really, really good. It's a good 7-parter. The surviving episode 2 is amazing, and again, it just showcases how much of a good character actor Troughton was and what he just could do with this role. He's so good. You watch him in the scenes in the laboratory when he's talking, and the Dalek shows up, all of that. Like when they mention static, it's just like, static? Immediately he's catching on static, because he knows the Daleks operate on static at the time. I absolutely love the nuance of his performance. I'm so glad at least episode 2 survives. I wish more of the story did. But the animation is really good and conveys it well. It's interesting because like the first 4 or 5 episodes I prefer in black and white because I like to watch them with the surviving episode 2. But the last two episodes really work in color. The color really pops once they're on Skaro. The red of the outside of Skaro, the blues of the inside of Skaro when they're in the base, it's just mwah, mwah. I absolutely love Evil of the Daleks. And it just goes to show that the 2 Dalek stories Troughton got are both grand slams. They both just knock it out of the park. And the top story on my list, The Mind of Evil. I love The Mind of Evil. This was the one I was looking forward to seeing the most in Season 8. I had already seen Terror of the Autons, but it was a long time ago, so I was really looking forward to a refresher course on that. And then I owned Colony in Space on DVD. It was the only Season 8 story I owned, and most of you know I like Colony in Space. I think it's a very underrated story. But Mind of Evil was the one I really wanted to see, having read up on it, and with a title like Mind of Evil, it just screams, hey, watch me. Boy, the 70s Doctor Who knew how to come up with some great titles that just wrote you in. Planet of Evil, Seeds of Doom, Terror of the Zygon. It's great stuff. But I love this one. Just seeing the Doctor still not over the events of Inferno, and that coming back to bite him here. The fact that he's still having to live, the fact it was a whole world he couldn't save, a whole another Earth that he couldn't save, with like, I think 3 billion people on it at the time. And so that his fear is fire, and the effects when the flames are covering the screen a couple times that happened to him is really well executed. The color restoration is not perfect on it, but the fact we have it in color is a miracle in and of itself, so it's good enough. I'm happy with that. But it is obviously the one on the box set that suffers the most from color quality. But I really enjoy it. Delgado is great here, much like in Terror of the Autons. He's very cool, laid back, suave, calculating. You know, he's already got things planned out 12 moves ahead. He's had time to set all of this stuff up. So he's just pretty much executing pre-planned moves here. The stuff in the prison is really well done. I love where they filmed like the prison at. Great filming location work. I really enjoy the Mind of Evil, and just the idea of the killer machine is really, really neat. That story really blew me away. I'm already getting back in the mood to rewatch it again. I have a feeling I'm either going to rewatch it in December or probably in January, because I love the Mind of Evil. It's my favorite new Doctor Who story that I saw this year. So what do you think of my list and these stories? And is there any Doctor Who stories you've seen for the first time this year, or perhaps one you saw you hadn't seen in a long time? So let me know down below. I always enjoy hearing from you guys. Other things to do: click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications. Trying to grow the channel to 1,000 subscribers. That's my goal right now. Help me out with that if you haven't subscribed already. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to contribute to what I do and help steer the direction of my channel, there is a link to my Patreon down in the description below. I would appreciate you taking a minute to check that out. My entry-level tier is only $2 a month, if you could just spare $2 a month. Most importantly, though, thank you for watching.